All right, let's get it going right here, right now. This is an Eyes Up Here YouTube special. This is a Dark Side of the Ring review. This is a look back at the episode featuring another triple threat brother. This is the Dark Side of the Ring review on the Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. Of course, if you didn't know by now, my name is Chad, and I'm joined here by another member of the Triple Threat, the Queen of Extreme, Francine. Francine, I know these have been tough, and we obviously talked about Chris and Tammy earlier in the Dark Side of the Ring season. Bam Bam, of course, another fallen brother, but as we learn more about not just the stories of the wrestling career, but stories about the family, we learn more about the individual. But before we get into all that, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay. A little tired. Again, we're doing this early morning. Hence my cool appearance right now. I'm doing all right. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Yeah, doing great. Ready to lock and load, and just love watching the story about Bam Bam. Obviously, I'm a Monmouth County guy, just like Bam Bam. He grew up 15 minutes away from where I did. Obviously, before I did, but nonetheless, all the towns, all the haunts, all the places that he went, essentially where I grew up. So loved every minute of that. But yeah, I can't wait to get into this with you this morning, because I'm sure you have a lot to say about the Beast from the East.
Did you ever were those bars still there when you were of age?
Yeah, they were still there, but not the one that DDP worked at, and the Quack Quack. Didn't frequent those, but Stone Pony was still around. Just never went. That was my scene.
Okay.
The places that I went to in Asbury Park, were more of like the, I don't know what you would call them, the more clubby style places. I don't think you can catch Bam Bam dead in a place like that, but
No.
It was Asbury definitely evolved a lot over the years, but Neptune High School, my gosh, I used to drive by it all the time because my wife used to work in Neptune. So it's just, again, it was so cool to see some of the places where they showed the pictures and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this was hard to watch again, because, like I said, with Chris, it was more than just a work relationship with these guys for me. It was a genuine friendship. Bam Bam, I think his daughter said it best. Like, I think it was his daughter. What you saw in the ring was not the person that you saw outside of the ring. Completely opposite. He was a monster in the ring when he was a heel. I mean, scary as hell. If you crossed him, he was a tough SOB. Obviously, as you saw, he bit the guy's ear. I mean, crazy. We can get into all that. But Bammer, to me, was the biggest teddy bear. Soft-spoken, very loving, always talked about his family, loved his children, always had a smile on his face, a big bear hug he would give me I felt like this little tiny creature in his arms, because he was just this massive man. You know what I mean? Just a caring, loving human being that I adored. And when I watched him in the ring, it was like he was floating on air. To be such a giant, but so light on your feet, was astonishing to me, because I'm clumsy, and sometimes I'm heavy-footed, and I don't weigh half as much as he weighed. And he just, like, I think Shane said, it was like ballet. He just floated around that ring and did his deal and hardly got blown up. And it was amazing to watch him perform. And as great of a performer as he was an even better human being, in my opinion. So this one was hard for me to watch because, again, he died at such an early age. So.
Yeah, it's funny, again, growing up in that area, he was a guy. So, oh, hey, you just missed Bam Bam Bigelow. He was just here. You know, you go to the Monmouth Mall in Eatontown, New Jersey. Oh, Bam Bam Bigelow was just here with his kids, or he was just here with that. But I remember somebody specifically saying he was with his daughter and how delicate he was with her walking through the mall and how he was doting on her in the mall. And you just picture Bam Bam being as big as he was with, as she was saying, how so little she was the last time they were around each other.
Yeah.
And the size difference and how much a father loves a daughter and how much this relationship was between them, how tight they were. Amazing. You know, just it's such a loving relationship, and so sad to see how she essentially was ripped away from him in that absolutely gut-wrenching scene they recreated,
Right.
where this 3-year-old girl relives her father nodding off behind the wheel, essentially under the influence of something, and her instincts of having to come up with a scenario to wake him up to get herself to safety. Just unbelievable. But again, as a local celebrity, all I knew of Bam Bam and his daughter was him doting on her at the Monmouth Mall, you know, walking out of KB Toys or Suncoast Video or something like that. So just unbelievable to put those two worlds together after all these years.
Yeah, talking about the family dynamic even before the performer, how smart that little girl was at 3 years old to know to make up a scenario to get her dad to pull over to the side of the road. That blew my mind. Because I look at a 3-year-old child and I think of a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like her instincts were spot on. Like how she did that is amazing to me. And just a smart, smart little girl. Heartbreaking that you have to put her in that scenario. I wonder how she ended up in that car. Did they like the backstory? Like, did they leave the house together? Where was the mother? Did the mother know that she was in a car with, either an inebriated Bam Bam or a drugged up Bam Bam? Or like, how did that come about? Because that's what I was wondering. I was like, well, where was the rest of the family?
Yeah.
This little girl get in that car?
I just think they must have been going out, father, daughter, going out for the day or something like that. And it must have been something seen on the road where either passerbys or somebody else noticed this person nodding off and
Right,
made
but nobody knew that he took anything? It was it how
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
far off? Because he died when she was 3. He died shortly after this. So the wife, if you paid attention, the wife said that the drug abuse was escalating and that the doctor was a fan, and the doctor would give him pill bottles that were this big, which is not the norm. You usually get like a 30-day supply or something. He's getting, according to her, he's getting 300 pills, every visit or something. And then the one son said he was taking like 20 pills a day,
Right.
which is, wow, you're supposed to maybe take 1 or 2 every 4 to 6 hours. So if you do the math, you're going to get messed up, right? So if it escalated to the point where now she's 3 years old, they know he's taking drugs. Why is that little girl in the car? Like what happened that she ended up in the car with her father? That's
Yeah.
what believe me, I'm not blaming the mother. She went through hell and back with him. I get it. Hard life for her. Even harder for the children to see their father this way. Like it's a terrible situation for everyone. But I just wanted to know the backstory, how that little girl gets in the car with him if he's so messed up. They didn't say it was a lack of sleep or anything. I think they alluded to the fact that he was under something because he gets arrested for putting the child in danger.
That's what they should have said it specifically, because I was under the impression that that's what it was as well.
I don't know. And I don't know. And again, don't come at me. I'm not going after the wife. I'm not saying the wife's a bad mother for putting her child in the car. I would just like to know how that scenario came about, how that little girl got in the car with him. Like, where was everybody else? That's what popped into my head when I was watching this. Because I'm just like, wow, what did he take? When you take those pills, they might not kick in for a while. His tolerance might have built up to the point where he needed the extra pills to get him where he needed to be. So maybe initially, maybe the wife thought he was okay. You know, he seemed fine when they left the house, and then boom, it hits you. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
That's what I would assume. Just from
that's what I'm thinking. But I would have just liked to have known like how they ended up together that day in the car. I don't know, but heartbreaking. A little girl's dad is like her first love, her whole world, everything. 3 years old. That's heartbreaking to me. You know, I was so close to my father. Like, I couldn't imagine losing my dad, not even getting to know him that well. 3 years old, you only have 3 years with him, and your memories are very, very short term. How do you remember stuff that long ago? I can't believe she even remembered something like this to write. She said she wrote it in her 8th grade paper.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing to me. And it's so sad, you know, losing a parent at such a young age. That's devastating.
Yeah. For that to be the lasting memory too.
Yeah. One of your last memories of your dad is him, you know, being taken away in cuffs. It's terrible. I don't believe for a minute that he did it, you know, with maliciously or intent to harm her. I just think maybe at this point he was just too far gone. Yeah. You know, he loved his kids. I know he loved his kids. He talked about his family all the time. So there's no way I could think he was a bad father. He was addicted, you know, and like they said, one of his children, one of the sons, he couldn't move. These guys take these pills. It is so sad the way, you know, your body reacts to bumping. I've said it like a million times. I haven't done nearly what any of these guys have done, and some mornings I can't even move. Could not imagine what he was feeling and what he had to go through to alleviate that pain just a smidge. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a hard life, being a wrestler. It is so hard. I don't care if you've trained at the best schools. It's trauma to your body. I've said it it's not normal to fall the way we fall. It is not normal, and you're going to suffer consequences later in life. When you're 20, 30 years old, you think you're invincible. You don't think it's going to catch up. That's the way I was. And my mom kept telling me, you're going to feel it when you're 40. And you know, you think you're a rock star. You think you're untouchable. Blah, blah. There's some mornings I can't even move my neck. And I've done a fraction of what these guys have done. So I you know, I don't fault him for taking the pills, but it gets to a point where, yes, you're going to become addicted. And look what happened. It doesn't end well. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to alleviate that pain. What else is there? Icy hot? You know, that's not an option. These guys with these pain, the pain that they had, too far gone. And it's heartbreaking to watch. It was just sad. It's just sad all around. He was so freaking talented. So
the bumps, you see the B-roll of the bumps that they were just showing, not just a Bam Bam, of anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, that they showed on the clips last night, especially when he did the, you know, the ECW run.
Right.
Woof, man, some of those bumps they showed, they handpicked some of the best ones because, wow, they were some of the most intense.
I loved when the son was explaining like how intense ECW and hardcore ECW was compared. Like, he was saying when he got to ECW, man, that stuff was insane. Like, the difference between that and the WWF at the time was like apples and oranges. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Yeah. And the story that I do not remember is when he got punched.
That's it. So now that's where I want to take it back to.
I don't remember that happening.
I want to go back to a few things, but let's single out that right now. So the story in the episode is that Bam Bam's family was at a show. Let's just say it was at Asbury Park, because I'm assuming that's where it was, right? It was. Let's just say it was an Asbury Park show. ECW ran Asbury Park very regularly. Convention Hall. Went to many shows there. I never went to an ECW show there for whatever reason,
Weird.
but went to many a show at Convention Hall. Because of the raucousness of an ECW show, young Shane Bigelow gets punched in the face by an ECW fan. So he goes backstage, does not explicitly state to his dad, I got punched by a fan, just as kind of like this. Bam Bam says, where is he?
Mm-hmm. Who is show me?
Show me.
Yeah, show me.
He points him out, and then the B-roll or the
You want to hit a kid? You want to hit a child?
Yeah, the reenactment is of a Bam Bam shaped man punching somebody and blood spurting in the other direction. So you don't recall this at all?
I don't. And I was there. I know I was at that show, and I don't remember this. How crazy. You know me, guys. If you don't know by now, after 4 years of doing this show, my memory is shot. I don't know if it's like the concussions I've had or the pregnancy brain, but I do not remember this incident. When I watched it last night, I was like, huh? What? And I'm going to have to talk to Shane, and he will probably remind me of certain things, and maybe that will trigger me. But this story, 10, 11 years old, and a drunken fan turns around and just punches this kid. Again, why did he pick on this child? I know he was drunk, obviously, but what the hell kind of story was that? You know, I know Bammer's family used to come. I know that. I just don't remember this little boy being punched. I'm sure it happened because crazy things used to happen all the time with the fans. But I'm like, where was I? I know I was there. I just don't know where I was when this happened.
Did Asbury Park have a separate changing area for the ladies?
I don't even remember the backstage area. I remember like the front, there was like a boardwalk. And I remember we had to do vignettes, and there was like hypodermic needles on the beach.
90s Asbury, absolutely.
This was back in the day. I remember Shane and I doing something maybe in the water or on the sand. I remember the front of the building. I don't remember, and I remember the ring and how it was kind of set up, but I don't remember the backstage at all. So I don't know where the hell I was.
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting stories that I did.
Oh God, yeah.
Want to ask you about, but just going back to, I want to touch on something you said earlier about how agile and how slick he was to move. There was one thing they kept showing in the B-roll footage of him in the ring. When he would get clotheslined over the rope, it was so smooth to see how he could just take it and jump with that over the rope and land. I mean, just to see how quick this guy could move. Or they would show him in the ring with Bret Hart, and it was funny because we watched a match, Bam Bam and Bret, where you were in attendance as a fan.
Yeah,
and the two of them could work. He could work any style, adapt to anybody in the ring, but he could move around with the lightest of the light, the Spike Dudleys of the world, or he could get in the ring and throw down with Masato Tanaka and kill each other. The guy could move around light as a feather. Do you have any recollection of a time where you saw him ever in the ring being like, he was not having the best night, or he was struggling, or was he always just that crisp and that good?
He was always that good. I don't ever remember watching him and saying to myself, oh gosh, he's blown up, or, oh gosh, he's, he was always on his game 100%. And I was in awe watching him because he was such a big guy. And I couldn't understand how somebody, I don't know how much 300-400 pounds, whatever he weighed, could move the way he moved. Because there were guys that were half his size that were clumsy as hell and would trip over their own feet. And here's a guy that was massive and floated across that ring. And I would just watch him, and because I managed him a lot. We worked together for years. I would just look at him and I'd be like, wow, And he said it best when they played his audio of himself talking, and he said something to the effect of, I want to be remembered as the big man who could do cartwheels, who could do the flips, who could do everything. That's how I want to be remembered in this business. You can't fault him for his work. Like, he was amazing. And looking like the Lawrence Taylor stuff I hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
And he made him look like $1,000,000. He was a team player. He did what he was supposed to do. And he was a good guy. Despite, falling into drugs, he was a good man. You know what I mean? Like, no one disliked him that I knew of. God, we had so much fun laughing and joking, and just he was just this lovable creature. And I adored him. When we did the spot at the arena, when I broke my pelvis, okay? Before we did that, we were in the back, and I remember talking to him, and I'm saying to him, what do you want to do out there? I don't know. He says, I'll do something. He goes, just come in and smack me, and, we'll do something. And I've said this before, I had no idea what kind of bump I was going to take from him, and I trusted him 100%. And looking back on that and taking the bump, I realized, like, I blame myself for not falling correctly, I suppose. But I mean, honestly, when you're 10 feet in the air and you're spiraling down to the mat, like, it's hard to maneuver your body, So I never blamed him per se for, like, oh, Bam Bam. I just say Bam, it was a bump from Bam Bam, and I fell the wrong way, But afterwards, he came in with such a remorseful look on his face, and his head was down, and he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he was genuinely upset. Like, they had me laying in the back on this table, and I couldn't stand up. And he just stood by my side and had his head down the whole time and felt horrible, and I'll never forget the look on his face. And I was just like, it's okay. And I grabbed this. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be okay. Then when I was on the crutches, he would see me. He would just shake his head. I was like, what are you going to do? These things happen. But again, it wasn't done maliciously. It wasn't like, I'm going to teach this girl a lesson. Let me throw. No, it was an accident that happened. And he was so caring and so loving afterwards, and checked on me, and he felt terrible about it. And that's one memory that I'll always have of him, is standing over me and just looking down with this sad boo-boo face, like, I'm so sorry. It's just like, yep, I'm sorry too. It sucks. But, I couldn't be mad at him because I loved him. I loved him.
One of the best shoot interviews of all time, they played the clips from that, and I love when they do that, when they actually play the person's audio and you hear it from them. Yeah. That was actually done while he was in ECW, and during his feud with Taz. It was an art video shoot, but it was done not by Rob. It was done by somebody else. Might have been Eric Gargiulo. I saw it like last year, but it's great. It's like 3.5 hours. Wow. You want to talk about learning the old school of the, like, coming up in the 80s, that's the one to watch. Mm-hmm. It's just loaded with, like, just different lessons of what people had to go through. Now, did you go to him for advice during that era, or did people in the locker room go to him? Because he was a guy, he was like, I know Terry Funk was the man for ECW, and he was the vet, but it's like Bam Bam was like the mainstream guy who he made his home in ECW. Terry Funk was like, he was there, then he was gone, but it's like Bam Bam made his home ECW for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had so much knowledge in such a short time that he had been in the business because he did go to New York early. You know what I mean? He was in WWF. He had that background. He knew how they worked. And then he comes over and it's a completely different style. So when we're in our little huddle and we're going over stuff, of course you listen to them. I listened to all three of those guys. You know, Chris, Bam Bam, Shane, they all had more experience than I did.
Right.
So if I had questions, I could go to all three of them and they were more than happy to answer and help me all the time, you know. What I didn't know was the timeline of Bammer. Like he got thrown into the business. What year was it? Was it 19? Did they say 93?
For when he
for WWF.
So he's brought into the WWF in 1987.
Oh, 87. I'm sorry. I'm okay.
So he breaks it in 85 and he's in the WWF in 87.
Okay, so he's got 2 years under his belt, right? And they throw him in, like Shane said, they throw him into this, you know, thing with Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant at it.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And I said it, you either have it or you don't. You know what I mean? Like you can tell when somebody has it. He had it. You can even tell from the early days at the Monster Factory.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, when he was just green and working and just his facial expressions, and I could see that he had it. When he returned, maybe I'm thinking when he returned after he was fired and then he came back, was that 93?
Yeah, so he goes,
okay,
he leaves
that's what
87,
I was
hits Crockett, goes to Memphis, goes to Japan, has an amazing run in Japan, comes back as a heel in late 92.
Okay. Yeah. So at this point in ECW, he's got 10 plus years. So he's a vet, right? What I was referring to a short amount of time was in the WWF when he just went there and had, you know, green as grass. And they were saying that Andre was trying to stiffen him in the ring and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which I remember. So that's when I first started watching was 87. And he was the hot property, and as a little guy watching, you thought he was the coolest guy in the world. He's doing cartwheels, he's jumping over the rope and pinning guys with the splash. You had the Bam Bam Bigelow LJN figure. That was the greatest guy in the world, Bam Bam, and then he's gone just like that. But as a 6-year-old, I didn't know that the veterans hated him and Andre the Giant was trying to kill him. I wasn't aware of that at the time.
You know, jealousy kicks in. You know, you see this guy 2 years under his belt and he's getting into main event status working with Hulk Hogan. The other guys are going to be pissed off. He took their spot. Potential spot, you know, who knew who would have got it if he didn't show up. But that's how this business is. It's cutthroat, you know, and you see somebody new come in and they say, oh, he didn't pay his dues. He's only been around a couple years. Guess what? He had it and he did it well. And it, you know, it generated money for the company. Vince McMahon loves the big men. So he took a chance on it and it worked. Now for his firing, I don't know if somebody got in Vince's ear because they said, oh, they soured on him and it went north. I can't imagine it was the work ethic because he loved what he did and he always went out and gave it 100%. So I don't know exactly the backstory on that. But I do know that, you know, when he came to ECW, he had a renewed fire under his ass. And he just was so happy to be with people who were genuinely nice to him and easy to work with. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he was generally happy to be in our locker room.
Right.
And I got that feeling from a lot of the guys because coming from New York over to ECW was a different vibe and a very, very more, I guess you can say like calmer, easier atmosphere to be in. Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't politics and there wasn't this and that. Everybody has their own thing. I get it. But when you ask people to compare WWF to ECW at the time, everybody will say they had a better time in ECW for sure.
Yeah, he was a victim of the clique politics, and he was joined in ECW by two other guys who were victims of the clique politics.
Crazy.
And
Crazy.
and then those guys were all tight, and it just, it was absolutely timing was the main thing. I can't say enough about what I saw again on the actual episode about Bam Bam, but again, I want to just put over what the family shared too. His kids were awesome. Shane is a spitting image of Bam Bam. If you shave that head and put a tattoo on it, that is young Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, they came off great. I know some things about them from people outside of the wrestling business, and I've heard nothing but great things about the family, and I just hope that they feel good about the finished product, and that the story's out there, and Bam Bam's legacy will live on. And also another Shane that was on there too, the franchise making his debut on Darkside of the Ring. Never thought I would see it, after he and I had talked about it extensively for years. But he was there. The quaff looked great, but Shane making his Darkside debut. I also, sent him a message to say thank God for him getting over his demons and his addiction to the OxyContin, because we saved a good one when Shane got over that horrible, horrible addiction.
Yeah. I feel like that his words came across very positively. The one thing Shane always told me is they can twist your words around, and that's why he never wanted to do the show. But this one, he came off as a caring, loving friend,
Yes.
as DDP did. Another excellent interview.
Yeah, he came off. DDP was awesome on it.
Yeah. I thought those two were the best interviews on the show. The one scene that got me was when I think it was Shane came out in his dad's outfit.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't fill it out as well as he did. And I looked at him and I got a flashback to his dad, and then they flashed back to him wearing the outfit in Japan. And I was just like, man, how hard is this for these kids to relive all of this and talk about their dad? You know what I mean? Like it's just a horrible, it's just a horrible thing, and his wife and Dana having to relive it too, with 3 young children and having to go through that and have her support her husband. Like she said, he would, how did she put it? He would leave us on the side of the road to get to the pills or something. She said something like, in other words, the pills were more important than the family. Yeah,
they took over.
And that was like a knife in my heart, because I didn't have that relationship, obviously, with Bam Bam. He was just a dear friend. But hearing that, it's just like, man, that is so sad, because all he talked about were his children, and his wife. He adored his wife. So hearing her say something like that was very, very sad. And I would die for my kids, but thank God, I don't have an addiction. So I don't judge people who do have addictions. I just wish people would try and get help. That's the thing. Like I've said it before, you have to want help and you have to admit that something's wrong. Maybe he didn't think anything was wrong. And it was, and it cost him his life, and it's heartbreaking. So, I miss him. I miss him. I miss Chris, and like you said, thank God Shane's still around. And every time I'm at an autograph signing and somebody hands me the photo of the 4 of us, my heart just drops, because there will never be 4 signatures. There's always going to be 2, and that's sad. Sad.
Without a doubt. You guys did something very special, and it'll be immortalized forever on video. And I just wish you guys could get one more day to throw up that triple threat.
Yeah, I seen the clips. They showed a lot of clips of ECW, which I liked, compared to Chris's Darkside. They really showcased him in ECW on this episode, and it just so many things. I'm like, I remember that. I remember that. I remember that. So that was, it was fun to watch and relive some of those memories. I told you I don't really go back and watch old stuff unless we're doing it for a watch along or something, but I don't sit here and watch, my stuff. I just don't. So when I see stuff like that, it triggers the good times that we celebrated in the business. And it was just, I know he was happy career wise, and that makes me happy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and do it. You can check it. I watched it on demand on my cable system, so you could go ahead and probably do it on your own if you have your own. I watched it on Xfinity. I'm sure somebody has uploaded it on YouTube. Maybe Vice has by this point, but if not, it'll be up there soon. So check it out or go watch some Bam Bam matches. That's the thing I encourage anybody to do after you watch one of these. If you haven't watched anything about the career, go watch some matches. Go check out some interviews that are out there. I saw Bam Bam live a bunch of times at indie shows. I don't know if I saw him live during his prime, during his career, but I definitely saw. Bam Bam was always the fill-in at the indie shows in Jersey. Somebody no-showed. A
really?
big star, star didn't show up. I remember specifically one Vader no-showed a show in Central Jersey. Who was the fill-in at the end? They do the big announcement, or they do the big announcement. They kick the show off, and it's Vader's replacement. Bam Bam Bigelow. Yeah, the place goes crazy.
Oh,
He comes through the
wow.
door. It was just, that's the stuff you'll never forget. So
Yeah.
R.I.P. Bam Bam Bigelow. The triple threat will live on forever.
Mm.
Final words before we say goodbye.
I I just loved him. I still love him. I'll never forget him. And I just wish the story had a happier ending. But memories live on, and I think of happy times. And I know he's in a good place because he had a good heart.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that, and we will catch you next time here on Eyes Up Here on YouTube for the Queen of Extreme. This is the Chadster. We will catch you on the flip side.